Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to Jacey's Creek, where I talk about Pacey and Joey and who they are episode by episode, not only as a couple, but as individuals. My name is Emily. I'll be your host for this podcast. I have been into Dawson's Creek since October of last year, and I wanted to share it so that other people who may have not gotten this show, or the people like me who have watched this show and just want to hear what other people think. If you're anything like me, you probably clicked on this podcast for the last reason. To hear what other people have to say about this show, or because you like Pacey and Joey, hence the name. So, let me answer the question that you're probably already asking. Emily, what makes your podcast different from any of the other podcasts that have been released about Dawson's Creek? Well, friend, let me tell you. Hence the name, it's focusing on just Pacey and Joey. What do you mean by that? There's a lot of episodes where they're not together, or there's some episodes where it's just Joey. Like in season 6, there was just one episode of just Joey. Or there's just some episodes where it's not, like the whole season 2, there was barely any scenes of just Pacey and Joey. Well, let me tell you, because as much as I love Pacey and Joey, you're right, there's a lot of scenes that are not focused on just Pacey and Joey. There's a lot in season 1, there's a lot in season 3, there's a lot in season 4, and if you look closely, there's a lot in season 5. Season 6, but season 2 is kind of a struggle. And when you connect them two together, there are some scenes that I've noticed where it's like, Joey will be talking to Dawson in season 1, okay? Remember that episode in season 1, episode 7, where Joey is kissing Dawson after when she's drunk? Well, there's one episode in season 6 where Joey's kissing Pacey when she's drunk, and they look the exact same, and it's so crazy to me, because even though that's just Dawson and Joey in season 1, there's one in season 6 of Pacey and Joey. And it just describes that when she likes someone, she goes after what she wants. And it describes her as a person. Not as a person, but it kind of describes what her personality is like when she's drunk. And I feel like when we focus on that part of the aspects, we start to realize, oh, fill in the gaps, like this happened in season 2, and I didn't realize that it also happened in season 6 with Pacey and Joey. And it's just crazy to me. If you put the 2 and 2 together, if you really focus on it, then you're going to see tons of scenes that relate to Pacey and Joey. And that's why I want to make this podcast, so that other people can be able to come on here and hear my thoughts, where it's just 1 week, I share one episode, and it comes together and it makes a sense at the end. I feel like when there's so many things that you could put on Instagram, and you could put on Twitter, and you could put on TikTok, there's a word count. And sadly, it's just kind of mean when you think about it, like word counts. No thank you. This morning I was posting something on my Instagram. It's called Litter and Potter. I was posting something on there, and I was so mad at Instagram because I'm like, dang it, there's a word count. Lucky for me, I'm starting a podcast, so hopefully one day I can cover this episode. And I don't know how long all the episodes are going to take me, but my goal is to do all the episodes. I'm manifesting that there's going to be a lot of people listening at the end. Even right now, I'm hoping the quality will be okay and everything will be okay, but I know that in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit hard. It's like starting a whole new Instagram for me, but putting my voice out there and putting my voice for the other people, for the whole world to hear, it kind of makes me nervous in a lot of ways. But it's the same as having a public account for my personal life, and it's the same as having a private account for my personal life. It's just me talking about Pacey and Joey for a hot while, and I don't know how long it's going to be. And I feel like if we all come together and we all just listen to what each other thinks, I think it's going to be so beautiful at the end, because I respect your opinion. If you respect my opinion, that's my motto of everything in life. And I just feel like there's so many things that I could say about Pacey and Joey, and that's why I want to start this podcast, because again, as great as Instagram is, I want to capture my thoughts and put them in a place so other people can hear, and that other people can start hearing when they started this show years ago, or they just finished yesterday. That's the cool thing. Like, you can just listen. You can just go on the internet now. And you can get more perspective of what other people say. Because that's the great thing about podcasts. It's different from all the other podcasts that are out there. And it's different from social media because it's my voice, it's my thoughts, and everyone's voices and their thoughts are different. Again, this is the first one, so please be patient with me. But I will be coming out with these on Sunday. That's my plan. Right now it could change to Monday, but my goal is Sunday. Your Sunday could look a lot different than mine because currently I'm in Tennessee. I'm in Central Time. You could be in a whole different country. I'm in the U.S., but I'm really curious how many people are in a different country than me. I know this isn't going to be perfect. I know there's no microphone. I know all of this. I'm working on it. Please be patient with me. Hopefully I'm talking loud enough and slow enough for people to understand me. If not, I'm sure there's a lot of ways that you guys could work that out. I don't know. But, and another thing I want to point out, no way am I supporting teens and teachers getting together. This is statutory rape, I'm not gonna lie, and everyone knows it, so I'm just letting you guys know if I make a sarcastic joke between Tamara and Pacey, it's just my way of talking, so don't take that too offensively. I just wanted to come on here and say that because I didn't want anyone to think that I support that in any type of way. I don't personally, but I just want to point that out there. You can get a hold of me on Instagram is Witter and Potter, or you can get a hold of me on TikTok, Pacey and Joey. Just comment on my last video if you're trying to get a hold of me on TikTok, or DM me on Instagram. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. The first episode, we are going to be doing Season 1, Episode 1, obviously, and this is called the pilot episode. To give you like a hint of what the time period is and all this, it came out on January 20th, 1998, which I wasn't even born there. I was born in 2003. My birthday is December 20th, 2003, if anyone wants to get an idea of how old I am. There are going to be 8 scenes of just Joey, 5 scenes of just Pacey, 3 scenes of just them two together. And that sounds so little, and I know it does, but you can hint who's probably going to be the most talked about. It's probably Joey, but we love Pacey. The first scene that we see of Joey is of her and Dawson laying on the bed, and I think when they're just sitting there watching E.T., I think it describes them because they're just watching movies, and they're just having this moment where there's no drama and there's nothing going on, because there are moments where there's a lot of dramatic scenes and just crying, and I'll discuss one dramatic scene that I just laugh at every time I see, but I just find it so funny that at this moment, this is what Dawson's Creek was. And then it just got more and more and more and more dramatic. It was the start of just Joey wanting to move on in a lot of ways and trying to move on from her feelings that were bottling, while Dawson was just stuck in his own thoughts. The line that we hear from Joey is, "I'll be right there. I love this movie." This won the Oscar, didn't it? The first line followed by her was Dawson correcting her, and it made me think at this time where Joey and Dawson have been friends for years. From my personal experience, I have never slept at a boy's house. It is not a thing that we do here, and as far as my dad knows, I have not kissed a boy out of the 17 years that I've been alive. And the only time I have been in a boy's bedroom was a few birthday parties, a neighbor's house, a friend's house, and even then, it's very uncommon for me to be around a boy unless I'm at school, which half the time it's fully by choice because boys just annoy me. And girls annoy me, I'm not gonna lie. Then Joey gets up and Dawson is watching his mom on television. Joey comments on her high hair, and it makes me laugh every single time because she asks, how can she walk upright since it weighs a lot? Which I just find it funny because the way that they style the hair. I find it so funny that every single decade there's a whole new style, and everyone's like, this style is the thing I did as a teenager. This was the thing that I did as a teenager. The first thing that I noticed about Joey was the fact that she likes E.T., which I just admire her for doing these movie nights with Dawson. I just think that's very, very sweet of her. But as she's putting on her shoes, I noticed that it's just, everything about this just is comforting. Joey knows his family, Joey knows this, Joey's in his bedroom, and it's just, personally, I found, when I first watched it, I was like, oh, this is a healthy relationship that can do that. Which I will get into that a lot later, where they get into the whole toxic environment. But once Dawson laughed at Joey's comment about the high hair part, he confirmed my thoughts about them being best friends because they go into this big, long conversation where it's like, Dawson says, where are you going? Joey goes home, and Dawson says, spend the night. And she's like, I can't. Dawson goes, come on, you spend the night all the time. And Joey goes, not tonight. Here, Joey's reason for not wanting to spend the night, which was, I just don't think it's a good idea for us to spend the night, you know? Then Dawson goes, no, I don't know. Come on, you spent the night since you were 7. It's Saturday night. And I'm like, oh, this is such a me thing to do. Because whenever I think about, when people go, I'm leaving, and I'm like, what do you mean you're leaving? Are you sure that you're leaving? Because I've reacted to so many situations where I just pouted about it, but then I just let them go. Eventually, just oh, okay, you have to leave, that's alright. You don't want to be my friend anymore. This made me think about my friend when I hear her say evolve, because it sounds like something my friend would say to me. I mean, when you've been friends with someone for so many years, you just get so used to what their personality is like, and I feel like Joey really did get a good aspect of what Dawson's personality is like. And even when he did her wrong, she was like, well, he's right. He's been my friend for years, and I should be okay with that. He's been through this with me, and this with me, and this with me. Which every single time Dawson and Joey get into a fight, he's like, we've been friends for this many years. I'm like, good for you, buddy. I'm never going to do that again to my friend. But I guessed at that very moment when she said evolve, my guess was that Joey was someone who was straight up with her friends, and when she had to, she would get to the point with saying something. And then Joey goes into saying, sleeping in the same bed was fine when we were little kids, but we're 15 now. I knew Joey was changing, and it made me think about how when you get into your feelings, you just hold them in so tightly. I feel like Pacey does this a lot. Joey does it too, but Pacey does it so much, where he'll get into his feelings, and he'll just not want to talk to anybody, and then it will just spill out like that. I'm just like, oh my goodness, Pacey, calm down. The prom episode, I know a lot of people hated that episode, but we're going to get into that one day. And let's just say, I have a lot of thoughts on that episode. But I just love how she holds in what she has to say, and she just goes. So my thoughts were, she's either going to, or she's going to say. Joey then made it a point that she has breasts, and he has genitalia. And it's obvious that her point in making this was kind of making Dawson uncomfortable in a way, because he's like, yeah, but he's like, how do you know that? And she's like, she pointed out that he has long fingers, which, very sexual, but okay. Joey then was about to leave, but Dawson stops her, and he asked her, what is happening? And the conversation kind of went like this. I just think our enraging hormones are destined to alter our relationship, and I'm trying to limit the fallout. Okay. Your enraging hormones aren't developing a thing for me, are they? Which I love how he says a thing. And then Joey goes, a thing? Puts her hand on her forehead. I'm not getting a thing for you, Dawson. I've known you way too long. I've seen you burp, barf, pick your nose, scratch your butt. I don't think I'm getting a thing for you. So what's the problem? We're changing, and we have to adjust, or else the male-female thing will get in the way. Which, in a way, I knew Dawson was thinking he knew this girl forever, and now she's just kind of like shutting him down. Which, of course, I know when they mentioned the Harry meets 80s crap, it was just how they were talking, but at the time I was like, who talks like this? That's my first reaction to Dawson Creek. I was like, who talks like this? But I like it. I can't even say mounts correctly. Dawson made a point that they aren't like that with the Harry and meets 80s crap. Well, Joey disagreed, so then they did this very uncomfortable conversation that they could have had. Like, they could have had this whole different conversation, but the two are just very stubborn, I will say that, and that's what makes this kind of like, in a way, like, oh, okay, like, I get what they're trying to say. But Dawson wanted to make it a point that they don't have to be like that. They don't have to be like the Harry meets 80s. And he goes, come on, don't get all female on me, Joey. I don't want to have to start calling you Josephine, which in my opinion, best friend or not, I would have been sobbing, but Joey's just she's just a bigger person. She's used to boys, where she just jumps on top of him and starts wrestling for calling, and she says, Josephine this, which I found very cute at the very beginning. But then they stop and they agree not to talk about this again, but knowing every teen TV show, I knew that they would talk about it again. And Dawson can never let things go. Joey can. Joey's always like, Dawson, just let it go, and then he never does. And you can either, like, gather what personality Dawson and Joey is from the very beginning. Dawson kind of, like, not letting things go, and Joey's like, I gotta go. So then we see the two go underneath the covers because she agrees to stay, and they say goodnight. But then it's really quiet after that, and Joey looks uncomfortable. She uncomfortably, like, shifts, and Dawson, he just kind of looks at her like, why are you moving? And in my opinion, if you see a girl uncomfortably shift away from you, Dawson, that's your hint to move a little bit further away from her. But okay, I'll just let that go. Dawson says the one thing that just always keeps me hanging. Why'd you have to bring this up anyway? Which is honestly something that I would say to one of my friends, and I have said, but I just always imagine Joey just dismissing it or rolling her eyes when he can't see her. I just want to point out that just because you know someone doesn't mean you have to, like, say that you know them. I've been around people like that before, and I just like Dawson when it comes to this kind of stuff, but when people say, oh, I know you because I did this with you or I did that with you, it really gets underneath my skin. Like, for example, my mom, she doesn't live with me, but she's like, I gave birth to you, therefore I know you. And I'm like, that's not how this thing works. And obviously I know, like, this is a whole different situation, but it just, like, I know the feeling of someone saying they know you, but they really don't know you. And it just really makes me mad. I don't know why, but it really does. But Dawson always has been like this in the show. And I get it, I really do. I don't hate on Dawson that much in season 1. But there are some things I just think he can handle better. But that's the fun part about growing up. One thing I do love about Joey from the very beginning, which was the fact that she was just straight up honest with you. And even, like, when we get into further in the scenes in this episode, you'll see what I mean by this. Because when she knew when to be quiet at some points, but there was just a point where it's just what she says, it's just honest in what she's thinking, or what she has thought, and it may be in a rude way, but again, you're holding in these feelings, and Joey does this a lot, so does Pacey, where they hold in the feelings and then finally pop. Change one bit throughout the whole show. It's something that they worked on, but I think Pacey was the one that didn't hold in his feelings a lot at the very end, and Joey was the one holding in her feelings. So that's the end of scene 1. So now we are on to scene 1 of Pacey and Joey. The first thing we see in this second scene of Dawson's Creek was Joey sitting in the armchair, and we hear dun, 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 and roar, and then a big scream from Joey as Pacey pushed her into the water. At this point, I never thought of Pacey and Joey getting together, but then again, it was only the first episode, it was only the first season. Every time I say I don't really ship them until season 3, some people will be like, well, I knew, and I'm like, good for you, that's understandable, but I'm blind. Like, I knew they were getting together, but I didn't know how. I just didn't understand it until season 3. And that's what I love about this show, because, like, there was just so many parts where it was just plain obvious that they would get together, but I'm like, I knew, but I didn't know, because I have trust issues, and that's what I mean by when I say I didn't really get that they were, like, getting together, which is ironic now, because I'm doing a whole podcast based off of them. But I just find it kind of funny how the show will put so many hints throughout the show. We see Joey and Pacey getting out of the water, and let me just say the first thing that I did notice about the pair was the fact that, like, when Pacey was taking off his sea monster head, he looked so cute with wet hair. I know that sounds so weird, but, like, his hair being, like, all wet and stuff, and, like, it was just, like, he looked so cute, even, like, in a sea monster hat. Like, I didn't really like his hair at first, and then it just kind of grew on me, and I was like, oh. But then again, it could be the mermaid effect, where, like, someone was explaining this to me the other day, where you think someone's, like, not really cute at first, but then you see their personality, so it's like a mermaid effect. I don't really know the full definition, but let me just say, either way, he looks so fine in that scene. Pacey then asked Joey, what was that? Let me just compare Pacey and Dawson for a second. I know Dawson and Joey compared to Pacey and Joey had a complete different relationship in this part, but I always love how Pacey was just straightforward to her. Meaning, when Joey was mad at Pacey, she told him. She told him, you grabbed my ass, that's the problem. That's what you just did. Which I know, like, okay, a girl is uncomfortable, she's gonna say you grabbed my ass. Like, that's not right. But I loved how when she was with when she was with Dawson the first scene, she was very like, oh, Dawson, I just don't think it's a good idea because I have breasts and you have genitalia. And then she's just like, you grabbed my ass to Pacey. And I just found that so funny because it just changes so much throughout the time. And now looking back at it, when I first watched it compared to now, I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, oh, that's different. So you just see a whole different point of view from what Joey's like with this person, what Joey's like with this person. I love how when Pacey said, like you even have one, you can just hear it in my voice, you grab my ass, like you even have one. But he had no clue that he'll be seeing that ass a lot throughout his life. I just want to say that. And I know, like, there's just so many crazy things that, like, I'm like, Pacey, oh, Pacey, if only you knew what that ass would mean to you. Funny to me how, like, we humans don't know who our soulmates are. And meaning this, it's like we all get this idea of who our soulmate is. And Dawson says, but Joey, you're my soulmate. You are the one person that I love. And in the end of this episode even, Dawson goes, without you, like, I don't know what this is or whatever. And I just really don't like that. Because I'm like, Dawson, you just don't say that. And I know I say that, but I'm like, it's different. Because Joey has feelings for him. And it just makes her grow more. And then Dawson kind of, like, Joey knew what she wanted, and like she knew that Dawson wouldn't want that, and so she just kind of like skipped around, you know? And with Pacey and Joey, it was like 2 years later, Pacey just went for it. And if Dawson just went for it in like the first season, he would have so much more than what Pacey had, which is crazy to think about, and I don't want them to be together, but at the same time, that's what it could have been. Because there's a connection that wasn't there 2 years later with Pacey and Joey, but at that moment, we're around season 1, scene 2 of Dawson's Creek, there's a connection that nobody knew at this moment. The thing that brings a connection to the table is how Dawson and Joey were so fixated on soulmates. Pacey said in season 5, the things we want always seem like a good idea at the time, which is so true in this situation, because Joey wanted Dawson, and at the same time, she knew that she was settling with him and with Jack, and I just find that so weird. When I hear Dawson talking about the film festival, and Joey says, "I'm not a victim," and Dawson goes, "Hello, some cooperation would," which honestly, I feel for Pacey at this, because he goes, "Hey, it's Meryl Streep's fault, okay? I'm doing my best." Then we get to the iconic bite me scene. Can we just admire these 3 in the first episode again? Okay. Pacey and Joey and Dawson did something that every other teenager would do, which is do something for your friend and just go out there and do something that you want. People would actually be willing to go out and dressed up as a sea monster. And I'm guessing that Pacey and Joey have done that scene a lot, because Joey said, "You grabbed my ass again." And she just mentioned on how we did it again, but I just find that funny. Pacey was probably doing that on purpose. We're gonna assume he did. Then we see Pacey see the iconic scene where Jen is coming out on the taxi and the song "Hey Pretty Girl," and then the song "Pretty Girl" is playing, where it goes, "Hey pretty girl, I wanna know ya, do 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 do." I'm not a singer, so we're not gonna do this. This is why I'm a band kid. Which, to point out, the first, like every single song on Dawson's Creek melts my heart, and I just love it so much. Pacey then goes, "Well, my mouth drops," which one day I bet I'm going to rant about Jen and Pacey's friendship. Let me just say, Pacey is a ladies' man. We have to admit, because the way he introduced himself to Jen and shakes his hand is one of my favorite parts of this whole scene. Meanwhile, there's Joey, who is completely jealous over Dawson and Jen because she knew him, and meaning Jen knew him. Then when Dawson goes, "Wow, you look different," Joey's reply to this always has me laughing, because she goes, "Puberty. I'm Joey. I live down the creek, and we never met, like ever." Also, if you look at this part and look at Pacey in the background, because the way Joey's voice changes while Dawson continues to stare at Jen, Pacey's just looking at her like, "Ooh, okay." And then Dawson gets excited when they found out that they're going to school together. Jen says she's going in 10th grade, and Pacey goes, "Cool, us too." But while Pacey is smiling at this, Joey gives the biggest fake smile that I've ever seen in my life. We then see Jen's grandma Grams calling her, and I love Grams. I get why people didn't like her in the first season. There's a lot of reasons why we can't like this lady in the first season. But I guess since she gets better, I feel better about the scenes. But in the first season, she just reminds me of a mix of all my grandmas combined in one, which is kind of scary, not gonna lie. We then see Jen say goodbye, and Dawson says, "If not sooner." Joey mocks Dawson at this moment, saying, "If not sooner," like, and while Pacey is just like hitting Dawson's arm, like, "Haha, I like that, good job." I always liked this part where Pacey was nudging him, about Jen, it was kind of comforting me because this was the part where they didn't have any troubles, or not really, like I was talking about in the first scene. There was a lot of things that were wrong with the friendships, but before Joey, and there's a long list that we can discuss about that. But I think at this time, knowing that there was no bitterness and anger, it just kind of like, you can see it kind of growing throughout the episodes. And in season 2, you can definitely see it where like Dawson completely forgets about Pacey's birthday, which I get. He was together with Joey, but I feel like that was very insensitive of him. I also think with Joey's jealousy, there was a lot of growth with that too. It shows throughout in the season how easily jealous she gets with Dawson. But then when she's like with Pacey, she probably gets jealous maybe twice, but Pacey gets really jealous of Dawson. Which I think she's a lot like me in a lot of ways. I don't get jealous often, but when I do, it's something that I'm usually right about. I got jealous when I was on a band trip last year. I had a boyfriend, and I got so jealous of him and this girl, and I was like, I have this feeling that something is gonna go wrong here. And of course, like now, me and this guy have broken up, but I felt so bad now because I'm like, oh, they're just friends, and she's not actually liking guys. Okay, I'm done. But I felt like I was right at the time, which Shelly was right at the time, because in season 5, Jen and Dawson do date. So it's kind of weird to me to see that part, but season 1 and season 5 Joey were completely different in how they reacted to Jen and Dawson, while Joey was reacting kind of like Dawson's mind in a lot of ways. Season 5 Joey was a lot different because how she reacted to Jen and Dawson were like, okay, well, I saw this happening and he's just dealing with stuff. I think with Pacey and Joey, they were hating one another, but if you look back and you notice all the times he would look at her in a way, I already counted them. It was probably like four-ish when they were in the scene. But you can see a lot of things where it was like, oh, he totally said something about this in this episode. Season 7, we'll get into that. I knew something was going on when I first watched it, but to be honest, again, I was only paying attention to Dawson because that was the first thing that I noticed. But I feel like with Pacey's humor and Joey's anger and throughout this whole entire scene, it just made the scene so much better. And that is the end of scene 1 of just Pacey and Joey. Now we are on scene 2 of Pacey. The second scene we've seen with Pacey is with Dawson and him working at the video store. Pacey says, so if your dad's Mr. Mammy, does that make you Mr. Mammy Jr. or Mr. Mammy II? Which, Pacey, I know Mrs. Leary said that, but Pacey's just, I can't. Which honestly, my reaction would probably be the same as Dawson, because when you think about it, it isn't the most ideal situation when you're best friend and you walk on your parents. Not the best situation there, buddy. Dawson's reaction to this was, with the Mr. Mammy, was, they're gonna have to drag the creek to find your body, Pacey. Which, this is very off topic, but it reminds me of the scene from Dynasty of 2017, where this one main character had a friend that fell off the stair railing, which sounds kind of complicated, but if you ever watched the show before, you may know it. And it's like a soap opera, so it's crazy. And so, 10 years later, the main character, Fallon, was like proposing to her at the time boyfriend. And she was proposing and the ring fell in the creek. And they have like this big mansion and la-di-da-di-da. And when the brother looked to find the ring for his sister, not knowing that there was a bunch of bodies in the creek, which was great for them, they just find like all these bodies just like in the creek, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that was there, including the friend, and she was like, oh, I didn't know that was there. Well, she really didn't. But that's just how I imagine Pacey And Dawson actually did do that, where Dawson was like, "Oh my, I didn't know. How peculiar is that? How weird. No, this will be it. How bizarre. How bizarre. How bizarre." Then we see Neely coming up to Dawson and Pacey and asking if the Forrest Gump goes in the comedy section or the drama section, which, may I add, is a full mood itself. Pacey then goes, "How many times are you going to ask that?" Which Dawson says the right thing and says, "Drama section." Editing Emily here. I know that it's actually Nelly instead of Neely, but for some reason I continue saying Neely, so please forgive me on that. Walks away, and Pacey goes, "Can you say what, Brain?" Which, by the way, if you click on Netflix Dawson's Creek, this whole clip will show up when you're first trying to figure out if you want to watch the TV shows. If you know, you know. Neely then says, "I'm sorry, what did you just say? Did you just toss a negative, disparaging remark my way? Because if you did, correct me if I'm wrong. I'd like to remind you who you are." And Pacey goes, I know, your dad owns the place. No, I'm talking about the huge, rotating world of life." And Pacey goes, "And who am I, Nelly?" Of course, he was amused by this because, honestly, I just had this, feeling that he just kind of accepted the things that people were saying, and it really did show Pacey's personality in a lot of ways in this scene, where he's amused by this, but probably because of his dad, where he's just accepting the fact that people are saying all this stuff to him, which is very sad in a lot of ways. But the supportive best friend that Dawson is, he just goes to back. He doesn't even put himself in the situation. He just walks away. And Neely goes, "Nobody. That's the point. You're not there. You don't assist, because if you did, I might have to respond to your pathetic little under-the-breath one-liners. But instead, I take comfort knowing you're vapor." Which, if you ever seen Alice in Wonderland clip with the caterpillar and the cigarette, where Alice is just standing there, and the caterpillar goes, "Who are you?" And the paper's just going around. That's what this reminds me of. I'll post it on my Instagram. We then see an older woman with a very short skirt, and you guessed it, it's Tamara Jacobs. Miss Jacob. Pacey then goes, "Oh my god, look at her." And Dawson's answer to this is very different from Pacey, and he goes, "Have some respect, man. She's someone's mother." I admire the fact that Dawson automatically went to, "There could be someone's mom." Which Pacey replies to, I happen to have a great authority that mothers have excellent sex life, alright?" Tamara walks over to Pacey and Dawson, and you can tell automatically Pacey's just thinking, "Oh, she's amazing." And this is my best impression of Tamara in this scene. And Pacey's like, "Can I help you find a video?" And she goes, "Yes, you can. This is my first time here, and I like to run a video." That's my best impression of her. Then Pacey bumps Dawson out of the way, and he hands Tamara an application to fill it out, and Dawson gets in the bag. Which, "Dawson, find your place, and when you need to go to the back, buddy." Tamara then introduced herself, which, looking at from a 17-year-old point of view, I personally get a little bit creeped out by older people. A few weeks ago, a man was reading my shirt, and I felt so creeped out because he asked me if my t-shirt was biblical because I had Jesus plus hot chocolate on it, and I'm just like, why are you reading my shirt in the first place? So I really try to get into Pacey's point of view when watching this part, but I just can't. I'm just like, oh, I feel so creeped out. Which, statutory rape right there, but I won't get into that whole point. It makes me mad thinking about it, but I'll probably look into that later. When Pacey asked if he could help her, she said she's in the mood for romance, and Pacey gets all nervous, and he was like, oh, okay, well, we have new releases, and she goes, oh no, I'm vintage, all the way, which sounds like something an older woman would actually say. Pacey starts to say something like he can go find the classic, but Tamara goes, where can I find the Graduate? And then you see Dawson, like, leaning over in the back, and Neely leaning over in the back, just like, and Dawson, like, gets to Graduate, and Pacey's all flushed. He goes, to Graduate, the one, he would check in the back, but Dawson beats him to it, and Pacey is still flustered by what she's saying, and Dawson says, don't forget your credit card. Pacey nervously hands it to her, and then they say, like, come back and return it, and la-di-da-da. And Tamara goes, I will. It's nice to meet you, Pacey. And Pacey goes, oh, yeah. That's so... And then she walks out, and Dawson, being Dawson, he says, bite the drill off, dude. And Pacey goes, she's flirting with me. Dawson goes, she was laughing at you. No, she wanted me. She wanted Dustin Hoffman, which... She didn't lead him on, but Pacey was definitely thinking too much on the situation. I just want to say, there's a lot of things on the way the show could make it, but it just showed how Pacey was at the time and how he was looking at older women. But it reminds me of that guy from season 6, where Joey was like, you remind me of someone when that teenage boy was hitting on Joey, and if you know, you know. So that was the end of Scene 2 with Pacey. So then in Scene 3, we see Joey climbing up a ladder, but she hides when she sees Jen and Dawson together. Jen then looks out the window so she could see Gramps, and so Joey hides so she will not notice her. We then see Joey wait for Jen to leave once she does leave, and then we see herself through the window. And Dawson noticed, and she asks where have she been as Joey sits down. Dawson then plays his mom on the television, and he asks Joey if she thinks his mom is sleeping with her co-anchor because the bees are too soft. Back to you, Bob. Joey then says, you're reaching. I mean, why would your mom be sleeping with her co-anchor? Your dad's the perfect male specimen, whatever that means. But then Dawson just had a feeling. But Joey knows this isn't true, and you can see on her face that she is just plain annoyed. But Dawson doesn't listen to her and tells her that he just has this feeling. And Joey then says, you're just looking for conflict. Everything is a practical script to you, except the fact that, except your perfect life, Dawson, it's reality. Which, dang, Joey, really get it there. And then we have Scene 3 of Pacey. We then see Pacey balancing a book on his head as Tamara walks in, and Pacey grabs the book off his head while saying, Tamara, and she replies with, hello, Pacey. Tell you what, why don't you call me Miss Jacobs during school hour? And then he says, of course. But, where was that in the other scenes? He then sits down and stares at her for a while and bites his lip while she's getting things off his desk. Scene 4 of Joey, and these are very short scenes. That's why I'm making these a lot shorter. We then see Joey sit in bio class, and when she sees Jen, she tries to look invisible, but Jen, of course, notices her, and Jen says, I was hoping we'd be in the class together, and Joey says, here we are, and just looks so very, very annoyed, because she does not want to be friends with her. We then see Joey walking out of bio with Jen into a crowded hallway, and Jen says, can I ask you something kind of up front? Joey says sure, and Jen asks if Dawson and her were a thing. Joey shrugs it off and says, no, we're just friends. And every single time I hear we're just friends, I always hear, but you say he's just a friend. If you know that song, you know what I mean, because there's this whole song about it. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure. But also, every single time I hear Andy and Pacey when they were breaking up, all I hear is, but you say he's just a friend. But you say he's just a friend. Jen then says, like we're gonna be, I hope. And then she says, you know, my Grams warned me about you. She said you were severely troubled. I love Joey's reply to this because she goes, well, no offense, but your Grams on crack. When Jen asks why her Grams rag on her, Joey says, pick a topic. There's my dad, the in-person conflict, or my sister imprinted by her black boyfriend. I feel like when we learn about Joey's dad, the fact that he's in prison for drugs, we can understand why Joey just shuts down the way she does, but I also feel like this is another way of how we view her in season 1 when she doesn't want to lose Dawson. And I can relate to that in a lot of ways with my personal life, since I don't live with my mom, and my mom deals with alcoholism. So I feel like seeing another teenager can help me at times, but I feel like there's a lot of things that I've learned more than Joey, and I'm just like, oh, come on. When Jen asked about her mom, you could tell it was still kind of new. I believe Joey's mom died when she was 13, so that could be 2 years before the show, and I honestly wish we saw more with her, a bunch of flashbacks, or with her dad, so we got more of a connection, because I feel like we hear things here and there, but we never really saw things, you know what I mean? Then we see Jen ask, so you live with your sister, and Joey adds the black boyfriend part. We then see Joey tell her not to break Dawson's heart, and I feel like it's a very tiny scene, so I just added it all together. But I feel like when Joey was sitting there with Jen and Dawson, as Jen was giving Dawson's idea and they were laughing, you could just tell Joey was annoyed. But I feel like this goes back to what her dad and what her home life is like, because so many people just go away. I feel like she gets so insecure about that, and that's just something that we learn about her, and she just has a bunch of trust issues, which they don't come out and say it, but you can assume if your dad's in prison, your mom got cancer and died, and your sister you're probably going to make fun of your sister and her black boyfriend and her getting pregnant, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying at the time it was probably a big deal to her, and it was just something that was really irritating her. And I feel like when you get so irritated at that stuff, you don't realize that it irritates you until the very last minute. There's so many things that just happen in her home life, and it just brings out her personality, but it brings out her worst insecurities. And I really do believe that, because if you go to the last episode of season 1 where Joey asks, where she tells her dad this whole big line about how she feels like nobody loves her, nobody sees her, and she goes, do you love me? And I feel like that brings out so much of this part, because as she's looking jealous of Jen and Dawson, the reason why she's so insecure about Jen coming into the picture is because her home life is not good, and she wants Dawson to be there because, Dawson said, they've been sleeping ever since they were 7, but they were probably friends longer than that. And once you get into that habit of being someone's friend, she won't come out and say it like Dawson does, but she needs to know that Dawson's still going to be there. So then, scene 4 of Pacey, we see Pacey walk into the classroom to see Miss Jacobs. We can see Pacey ask Tamara, when we see Pacey ask her how their graduation went, he goes, Miss Jacobs, how's the graduation? And she replied, just as I remembered, and it was kind of like a teacher way of saying it, just how I remembered it. Pacey asked if she was looking for any romance, and she said, do you have any suggestions? Kind of not oh, do you have any suggestions, and like that. It was more like, dude, what do you think? She was amused by the whole situation, to be honest. And he suggested Summer of 42, and she asked to refresh my memory. Well, it's about a beautiful woman who seduces a young boy on the verge of manhood. Sounds so familiar. A beautiful woman who seduces a young man on the verge of manhood. Which, if you have not seen this whole clip with Joshua Jackson in this interview, I'm going to add it in here, where he's on this interview for MTV, like this interview for The Affair, which if you have not seen The Affair, I highly recommend searching up Joshua Jackson and just watching all his movies, because that's just something that we do in this podcast. But if you have seen The Affair, please let me know. And she replies with one of my favorites, but then again, here's...
Guys, how's it going? Oh, welcome back.
Thanks, buddy.
So good to see you.
Good to see you.
Tap cool with you guys? Great.
I'm gonna like this place. This is one of my favorites.
Is it?
Yeah.
Get some menus your way.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
Getting strong. What was that?
Do you want sparkling?
Touching. Do people just randomly touch you on the street? You're walking down the street, they're like, oh my god, it's so good to see you again. I mean, clearly you know him. Would you like to have lunch with him instead? I mean, I can just go if that's what you want.
Don't be silly. It's close to my apartment. I come here a lot. I'm a regular.
Oh, great. Good. Here are your menus.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Really sorry about this, but we're out of the duck. I know it's your favorite. I tried. I really tried. Oh, you know what, buddy? You got a little something on your face there. All right.
That's a bummer. Actually, the duck is the best thing here. You would have loved it.
Is it? Is it really?
What's wrong?
Don't you ever do that to me in public again.
I feel like you're overreacting.
Overreacting?
Quite a bit.
Yeah, you are shameless with this guy, and I'm overreacting? This is supposed to be Josh Jam, okay? Josh Jam 2014, remember? And all you're talking about is the duck, oh, I love the duck. Clearly, you've had the duck before.
Josh?
It's Joshua, not Josh, okay? I mean, it's like you don't even know me anymore. I think this should brighten the mood. And there he is. That's great. Some wines from your lovely fans over there with their compliments.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
it's
cool.
Fantastic.
Let's toast. Huh? Old friends?
Old friends. Why don't you go hang out with your fans?
They're clearly your fans. You know what? Maybe I should go.
No. Don't go. Don't go. Okay?
Okay.
We need to work this out now. I'm sorry. I don't want to wait for our lives to be over.
You're quoting Dawson's Creek.
Actually, you know, I find that works for me in a lot of different contexts, so if you just go with it. Oh, brought another wine glass for you, so maybe something happened over here. Josh, I just don't want you to forget Sunday night, Walking Dead, Josh Jam 2014.
Okay.
My name's also Josh. Oh, that's great. Josh Jam 2014.
You could come over if you want.
Will he bring the duck this time? Because I'd really like to try some of his tasty duck.
You've got issues, dude.
Yeah. Oh, I have some serious issues.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know.
You should know.
Yeah.
Good. Now we're communicating.
I don't think so.
You don't want to hang out again, do you? It's okay. I mean, I've been through this before. It happens to me all the time. Vanderbeek, Estevez. I don't have a single email from one of the cast members on Fringe. Everybody abandons me.
All right, for what it's worth, I'm really sorry.
Well, you should be, because you're a liar. The truth is, you are a handsome, very well put together man who's feeling a little insecure about turning 40. So when a virile young boy such as myself flirts with you, you encourage it. You entice it, because it makes the aging process just that much more bearable. Well, let me tell you something. You blew it, lady, because I'm the best sex you'll never have. I'm leaving. Good day.
She then replies with, it's one of my favorites, and she tells him he can reserve it for her, and she declines by saying she's going to see a relative tonight, and she says, it gets great reviews, and he said, well, maybe I'll go check it out, and then he walks backwards into someone, and the guy goes, hey, and Tomorrow just looks very entertained by this, not gonna lie. Then Pacey goes up to Dawson and says, Video Woman is my new English teacher. Okay, you, me, the movies tonight, we are stalking a faculty member. Which honestly sounds like something I would say. Well, something that my friend would say to me when we're, like, talking. It's like, you, me, we're studying faculty member when we find someone cute. Which, I know that's wrong, but it's just a thought. I tried to stalk one of the teachers that my friend liked one time. And my friend's like, that's so bad. And I'm like, but don't you want to see what his life is like? But he has kids and he's married. And our oh-so-lovely Dawson replies with, dude, negative. Which, thank you, Dawson, for pointing out that it's a negative, but you'd think Pacey would learn, but no, he gets the girl. Pacey then thinks he will lose his virginity. Okay, Pacey. You have high expectations. And he says, actually, having the possibility of losing my virginity in a high-level fantasy fashion. But then Dawson says, Pacey, go home, walk your dog. It's never gonna happen. Or, it's not gonna happen. We hear Pacey say, that's not the plan, man. And he just wants to familiarize her with the gaze of the smile and the charming feature, you know? But Dawson tells him not to do this to myself. And Pacey, I love Pacey when he says this because I'm just going to give you a long list of this. So Pacey says, look, it's a fact that having a large percentage of younger women are attracted to young boys on the verge of manhood. It keeps them feeling alive. I read it on a Cosmo. And Dawson says, what are you reading, Cosmo? And Pacey says, look, I have 3 menstrual diverse sister. Cosmo is my savior. And Dawson's laughing. He's like, what do you need me for? And Pacey goes, moral support, okay? It will be cool. You can even invite Miss Teen New York. And I can just imagine Pacey as probably a 7-year-old or something, just reading all these magazines. And he goes on when he says you can invite Miss Teen New York. He then says, unless someone beating you to it, because Jen's talking to this guy, and he says, come on, man, get in there, be a sir, talk to her, alright? You should be the one reading Cosmo. It will build your female esteem. And then he pushes him and he says, go on. Dawson punches him jokingly, and then he walks towards Jen, and he looks past the boy as he reaches Jen. But that's Dawson. But can we all just close our eyes unless you're driving and just imagine Pacey reading a magazine for not directly for his way of women, but I can just imagine that's how Pacey's so good with women all the time, because he just reads these magazines. I can't get over that, I'm not gonna lie. That's just, it cracks me up every single time. So now that we discussed Pacey in the magazines, let's go on to the next scene. We see, this is the 6th scene of Joey, and we see Joey walking while Dawson rode his bike to her. And this scene is actually the first thing that made me want to watch this show, because it was the thing that showed up on Netflix. And he says, hey Joey, I need a favor. And she says, uh-oh, which we know Dawson's gonna ask for a favor. And as he gets off his bike and walks along her, he tells her that I have a semi-quest date with Jen tonight. We're going to the movies with Pacey and I need you to come with us. And Joey just deadpans and goes, I'd rather go in a plane crash. Because she finds out it will be a double date and totally freaks out about this. Because Joey asks if it's a double date, and then Dawson being the supportive best friend that he is, says Pacey, and she says, and he says it with Pacey, and he says, sort of, but not really. Pacey's on this hormonal mission, which I love how he describes Pacey's and Tamara hormonal mission. okay. You're such a good friend. Hi. Yep. And Joey says, are you on an aneurysm? No way. Dawson then says, it's not like a date. It's so Jen won't feel uncomfortable. And Joey says, we wouldn't want that. And of course we wouldn't want that because Jen's amazing. Dawson then pleads with her, and he just keeps saying, please, like 7 times, and even grabs her arm. She agrees to it, but I feel like she just kind of says it because she just wants him to get shut up. Like, I would totally be like, can you just shut up? But I feel like when she saw his face, she got the memo and what he was trying to do, and she's like, oh, okay. Maybe if I just say yes, he'll stop talking. Or she was probably thinking, maybe if I say yes, I can make this miserable. I'm kidding. I can make them too miserable or something like that. I don't really know. I can't really think of something. But I feel like Joey said yes, but I feel like she totally regretted that. He then tells her not to worry about the relationship, and she can tell him anything. Sure you can. Let's go back to the episode of The Longest Day where Pacey and Joey actually admit that they're dating, and Dawson totally freaks out, even though they weren't together. Which still makes me mad. Like, I get it if Joey and Dawson were together in season 3 and that's why he freaks out. But at the same time, he could have had such a better reaction, but it's such a typical Dawson reaction. Anyway, we're gonna go to scene 3. So now we are on scene 2 of Joey and Pacey. We see Joey, Pacey, Jen, and Dawson walking into the movies. We're not going to talk about the fact that Jen, Joey, and Pacey are matching in so many ways. I mean, all of them really are, but the 3 of them are really like matching because they're all wearing light blue. Joey is wearing a light blue top with a small beach jacket. Pacey's wearing a light blue dress-up shirt, and Jen is wearing a blue shirt with a little flower design. And I love this shirt so much, I'm not gonna lie, and a little green jacket, while Dawson is wearing a peach type shirt. When Jen asks her what shade of lipstick she is wearing, Joey shots back with, I love your hair color, what number is that? Dawson said, you'll have to excuse Joey, she was born in a barn. Joey then asks if Jen is a virgin, and Dawson goes, well, that's mature. And if you look in the back, Pacey's just smiling at her. And I always love that part because he laughs at it. And then he just kind of like smiles and looks away. But I think the reason why he puts his thumb on his chin is because when Joey says, well, because Dawson's version and 2 version really makes for one clumsy experience, don't you think? Dawson moves next to her and he says, you're gonna die. And I noticed in the background where he's like scratching his forehead and stuff, and he looks down, it's kind of like where he says in season 1, episode 7, that I just kind of like stood by this and didn't really say anything. And that's what that thing reminds me of, because it's like him standing by and not saying anything, because in a lot of ways he couldn't, and I feel like if he smiled, then maybe Dawson would get mad, and Pacey didn't really want that. And I appreciate Pacey staying out of it, which is a good friend, but in another way, I feel like one of the reasons why he did that was because he just didn't want to deal with Dawson. And I know that's kind of like a weird way of saying it, but just really think about it, guys. Really think about it, because Pacey said in season 1, episode 7, that he was just idly going by and not really saying anything. And then this scene really clears that up, and I just noticed that. And I really do like how Pacey does this, but I just kind of wish that Joey saw him laughing, because I would just found that funny. When Jen asked if Joey was a virgin, Joey just laughed and said, please, years ago. trucker named Bubba. I like that part so much because it's like, please, years ago, trucker named Bubba is so sarcastic, and then Dawson just pulls her aside and is like, what the heck are you thinking? While Pacey just goes to the line and start buying the tickets. And if you notice, when Dawson walks away and Joey's just kind of like standing there and spinning around, not like, if you're a girl, you may understand this, or maybe if you're a guy too, I don't want to put any gender role in this part, but like, you'll understand when you have like a little crush and something's annoying you, you'll start like moving back and forth. If you have anxiety, you may understand this. And she kind of looks like she's like doing like a little dance, but you're like, oh, maybe he'll notice me and la-di-da-da. But the thing that really gets me in this part is like you can notice like the tiny speaker on Katie Holmes' outfit. Which honestly, and then the scene continues going on. This is scene 3 of Joey and Pacey, where we see Joey, Pacey, and Jen and Dawson walking in. You could tell Joey doesn't want to be there as she sits down and makes glances at Jen and Dawson. Then Pacey sees Tamara and he goes, I'll be right back. And then walks on by to Tamara, and of course Tamara does not want him there, but Joey just glares at Pacey like, how could you leave me? I can't, like, how could you leave me alone? I just wish you went, come back. That's what I would have done. I would have held out my hand and went, come back. But then she sinks more into a chair. We see Joey sees Dawson trying to hold Jen's hand, and that's when she just kind of lost it there. She said, so Jen, are you a size queen? And Jen goes, excuse me? Joey says, well, how important is the size to you? The fact that Pacey calls her a prude. Okay. Jen says, well, being a virgin, I guess I haven't really given much thought. How about yourself, Joe? And Joey goes, I'm torn. Dawson's like, that's it, and drags her out of there. And Joey goes, notice the long fingers? Okay, yeah, I'm sure you're a prude. We see Pacey sitting down next to Tamara, and she turns and smiles to him, and then noticed it was Pacey. And Pacey said, just checking out the movie, I came here with some friends. And the funny part is that when Tamara looks back, Jen is the only one sitting there. She's like, oh, okay. And then we see Pacey go, want a milk dud? Which I always found kind of funny. Like, you're just sitting next to you, she's cheering, you're just like, want a milk dud? But why does Pacey always offer candy? Just think about it. Pacey then says, the summer of 42 is officially reserved in your name. And Tamara's like, you don't understand. But Pacey was telling her he could come over and watch it. And then Benji, which is Mr. Gold, came over to Tamara and asked if Pacey was bothering her. And Tamara goes, like, no, Benji. And then the way Pacey repeats it, he's like, Benji? Hi. Like, what? Like, excuse me? And it's just very Pacey. It reminds me of this scene. I don't know if anyone has actually watched season 5 or season 6 all the way through. But if you do know, you know. It's where Audrey and CJ, something happened between them two, and then Pacey got very jealous. And so CJ and Pacey got into like this fight. I can't remember which episode it is, but that's what it reminds me on the top of my head. To this episode, Pacey said, Miss Jacobs invited me herself. Like, sure, Pacey. Sure, let's go with that answer. Well, then Mr. Gold says, look, why don't I help you find your seat? When Tamara goes, I was just renting a movie. Poor Tamara, the only thing that she wanted to do was to run a movie. And then Pacey's just kind of like, hey, you like me, I know you like me. Pacey then gets up quickly and pushes Benji, which then causes a whole scene with the popcorn all over the guy, and then big punch in the face with Pacey, which if you haven't seen this Instagram, Pacey gets punched. You should totally follow this person on Instagram. I only talked to them once, but she has 232 followers. I highly recommend following this person. It's pretty funny to me. You'll be surprised how many times Pacey gets punched. Meanwhile, Joey in the lobby arguing with Dawson about Jen. Joey says, "My problem is from the moment that little Miss Highlight showed up, you haven't said one word to me." And then Dawson goes, "Crap, that's pure crap, and you know it." Joey goes, "All I know is that all your blood is rushing down, and you can't acknowledge another human being presence." And Dawson goes, "I like her, okay? Sue me, I thought you were my friend. Where's a little understanding?" And then I love this part. Joey goes, "I understand. I'm tired of understanding. All I do is understand." As a girl who has been through a bunch of heartbreaks before, this part really breaks me because Joey is just like, "Why don't you understand that I like you? And that you probably shouldn't have said that to me." And then Joey says, "Nothing presumes with you, Dawson. You're so far removed from reality, you can't see what's right in front of you." Dawson says, "What are you talking about?" And Joey says, "Your life. It's a frickin' fairy tale and you don't even know it." And this may be because her home life is so bad, and then she has this friend that doesn't even realize how good of her home life is, or how good of his home life is. You just want conflict for that script of yours. And then she says, "Stop living in the movies, grow up." So proud of you, Joey. But why do you say this in only the first freaking episode? Why doesn't she say this half the time? I really wanted her to punch Dawson in the face several times, and then she never does, and it makes me so mad. And then Joey leaves. Go, Joey, be free. Every single time I see this one scene in season 3 where Dawson lets her go, it always reminds me of whenever Joey leaves really angry with Dawson. I always go, "Be free, Joey, be like a bird, fly away." I don't know why. And I don't know why every single time she walks out the door, it just reminds me of season 3. My first reaction was just like, "Be free." For scene 5 of Pacey, we see Pacey walking along the borderline with a swollen eye. He spots Tamara and stops while shaking his head. He says, "What are the chances?" And she walks up to him. Tamara noticed him and saw him with the black eye, wanting to talk to him. Like, "Move along, lady. He will learn. Just move, move, move." And she touches his face and he pushes her away like he should have. Like, "Pacey, push her away. You don't need a 35-year-old woman taking your virginity away from you. But okay, I see you. I see how it is. You're just gonna let it all slide by. Huh, what are the chances?" And then she said that she wanted to talk, and Pacey goes, "About what? The graduation or the summer of 42? Which would you rather discuss?" That's all he wanted, was to talk to her. Poor Pacey. But, Pacey, this is wrong in many, many ways, and this is not like you in other ways, but I see you. I see you, but you need to stop right now. Then, the iconic scene, which I was talking about earlier with the, NTV, this is the part that and she said, "I like to clear up this misunderstanding." And he says, "I understand you perfectly well, Miss Jacobs." And Miss Jacobs goes, "Well, I'm sorry." And then Pacey goes, "Well, you should be, because you're a liar. How could you say you're just running a movie?" And she's just standing there like, "Because it's true, I just wanted to rent a movie." And then he goes,
"Brock, the truth is you're a well-put-together knockout of a woman who's feeling a little insecure about hitting 40. So when a young virile boy such as myself flirts with you, you enjoy it. You entice it, you fantasize about what it would be like to be with that young boy on the verge of manhood. Because it helps you stay feeling attractive. Makes the aging process a little more bearable. Well, let me tell you something, you blew it, lady. Because I'm the best sex you'll never have.
I can't. And then it reminds me of this scene from The Princess and the Frog. I can't remember exactly what scene it is, but it's like that woman where it's like that girl with the blonde hair, and she goes, he is a man, or something like that. That's how she talks. She goes, he is a man. Hold on. So I went back and I tried to watch The Princess and the Frog. Like, I watched a few clips to see if I just made it up, and I think I just made that up, but I swear, the girl that wears the pink dress, if you know, you know, that's how I picture when she just got upset and she was just looking for a Prince Charming. That's what it kind of reminds me of, but I guess the only part that it reminds me of The Princess and the Frog was when that same girl went, when a woman says no, when a woman says later, she actually means not ever, and that's what Tamara should have said. And Miss Jacobs kiss, and she realized what happened, so she runs away, and then Pacey goes, see you later, Miss Jacobs. But poor Pacey, with the black eye, and then this woman kind of comes along. Scene of the first episode. So here we go. We see Dawson open up his closet, and Joey is sitting there. Like, not creepy at all, Joey. Not creepy at all, Joe. We then see Joey get out of the closet, and when Dawson asks why was she sitting there, she goes, hanging with the clothes. Like, that's not depressing at all. She flops on the bed with the E.T. doll, which I want to say, if you have not read my fanfiction, which will also be in the description, I made this little writing where Dawson gives Joey the E.T. doll, and as much as I don't like Dawson, I really did think I did really good on that one. So I'm going to say, again, if you like Joey and Pacey, I'm not going to say too much on it, but I will. It's kind of like a teen fanfiction, well, obviously, a teen pregnant fanfiction, which, as weird as that sounds, it's really good. It has 4 chapters right now. It has 36 words right now, and I highly recommend it. I was debating on whether to call Pacey's mom Marissa or Mary, but apparently her name is Mary, in case anyone's knowing. Anyway, so I just want to say I was very proud of that E.T. doll moment for myself. But Dawson asked what is going on between us, and Joey, of course, says, I have no idea, because when did they ever know what's going on between them two? Just a thought. This conversation that Joey and Pacey have, I will admit, is a pretty good scene, because because Dawson is admitting that he is doing wrong. And he says, I know I have this incredibly perfect life, and I underappreciate it. And Joey looks up and she says, yes, you do. And he says, I'm sorry, I was such an insensitive male. I thought I was above it. And then he pauses. He says, I don't want to lose you, Joey. What we have is the only thing that makes sense to me. That's not creepy. Like at first I thought it was cute, but don't come too possessive right now. I'm kidding. But at the same time, I'm really not. We then see Dawson admitting he loved how pretty Joey looked with the lipstick by saying, when I saw you in the movie theater with that lipstick on, I remember thinking how pretty you looked. And Joey looked up at him. I mean, I ignored it, but I thought it. Why didn't you say anything? Pacey would have said something, but no, okay. Pacey was right. You do need to read some magazine, but then again, you would be kissing a 35-year-old teacher if you did. You wouldn't be just a boy, you would be a man. Maybe he's a girl for reading magazines. Just roasted Pacey. The two still didn't really think, like Joey and Pacey still didn't think that. So the thing that really gets me is that Joey and Pacey still didn't know what the heck they were doing half the time. And Joey says, "We're growing up, Dawson, that's all. I mean, even Spielberg outgrew his Peter Pan syndrome." And then she leaves, and Dawson asks where is she going. She says, "I can't sleep anymore, and we can't talk to each other like we used to. There's just some things we can't say." This all happened in probably 1-2 days maybe, which is such a mood. Dawson said, "No, that's not true. Joey, I can tell you anything." Again about the longest day part, that really bugs me. Yeah. But when she says, how often do you walk your dog, huh? She knew she was right. When she asked him again, he can't answer. Dawson then says, "Good night." And they always say each other's name whenever they have a serious name. She said, he said, "See you, Joey." She said, "See you, Dawson." And then she climbs out the window. And then she climbs down the ladder. This part is so dramatic. Oh my goodness. I'm using a transcript to type my outline off earlier. And I was like, I'm just gonna have to read this to you guys in the most dramatic way possible. Ready? She leaves. Dawson, angry at himself, gets up and sighs in frustration. Joey hurries down the ladder. Dawson runs his hands through his hair. This great. Cut to Joey walking fast, arms crossed, tears beginning to flow. Dawson bangs his head against his closet. Cuts to Joey running, the tears flowing faster to the dog. Dawson sits in his chair looking at his picture of Steven Spielberg, thinking, of course he is. Joey unties the boat as quickly as she can. The camera closes in on her face. Tell me that's not the most dramatic thing that you have heard. But then Dawson calls his name. This isn't the transcript. But then Dawson calls her name from the window, and he says, "Usually in the morning with Katie Curran," which my first thought was, liar. I don't know why that was my first thought. But then we see Joey laughing as she rows her boat gently down the stream. Like upon a dream. And then she's happily rowing until there's a car slamming, and we see Mrs. Leary leaning into whose car? Bob. Bob with the soft B car. And Joey looks at the window and noticed Dawson was gone. Dun dun dun! So yeah, that's the end of this scene. And you guys, I have to read this part now, where it says, "Cut to Joey's confused face. She stares at him mystically. Suddenly, she realized, breaking into a grin, laughing as she pulls away from the boat. Cut back and forth between the two, smiling, laughing. Joey rows happy. A car door slams. She looks and sees Mrs. Leary land into her co-anchor Bob's car and kissing him. Joey stares in shock. She glances up at Dawson's window to see if he noticed the window's empty. The camera fades on Joey's stunned expression. I think I described that pretty well, but you guys, I am dead serious. That is the end of this. And that's the end of this episode. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. I went back and I edited all the stuff that needs to be edited. And at first, I started this as 3 hours. When I tell you guys that I can talk for 3 hours, apparently I was not lying, especially being in a pandemic when I don't talk to anyone throughout the week. It's nice to just talk about my favorite TV show. Not saying that I don't have any friends, but in a lot of ways, it's 2021. There's not many people wanting to go out. And it's in the US, it's kind of coming up a little bit, where people can go out and stuff like that. But it's definitely hard at times, and I know a lot of people may agree with me on that. And I try not to talk about the pandemic, because it's just I want you guys to feel comfortable for an hour and a half, like I would want to. but I just want to throw that out there. This is really fun for me, and I could just rant all the time. Another thing that I want to say is make sure to check out the show notes below. Make sure you subscribe to whatever platform that you're listening to, and review. I don't have Apple, but hopefully some people will may say some nice things. And if you do review, can you let me know on the messages? Like, message me on Instagram and let me know, because I don't have Apple. I have a Motoroid, so I wouldn't know if you reviewed. I'm using Anchor to record. It's free. You should check it out. I also want to say that this podcast is going to change over time. All of these are my opinions. Don't take me completely serious. I apparently really bashed Dawson throughout this whole episode without meaning to, but I think I did a really good job at not bashing him at the same time, because I know people do like Dawson. I personally do and don't like Dawson. What's a love-hate relationship? It's me and Dawson. It's not Eddie. I mean, Eddie's great. I saw this one person put Eddie and her have a love-hate relationship, which I agree with. But really, me and Dawson have a love-hate relationship. It's a problem. He doesn't know about it, obviously. And so that's the last thing I want to say. But again, review. Let me know what you think, because then other people can see this podcast. And that's all I want to say. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Witter and Potter, TikTok, Pacey and Joey. I'll see you next Sunday, hopefully. Bye.